This agreement becomes the way we reconcile the wrongs that were suspected, no admission of guilt, but that were suspected. And there were about 70...
But their emotional well-being, right? And if I can't care for their emotional well-being, then I'm certain that they can't care for yours. Everything to mitigate and prevent that from occurring, there are just instances that that isn't the outcome. And that is a sad reality for all of us.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. I thank Pastor Snyder for hosting us here. And I want to take one moment to publicly recognize and thank someone who's in the audience tonight, Dr. Emma Lucas-Darby, who has served for many years as the chairperson of the Independent Citizen Police Review Board. We don't often have an opportunity to thank people for their unselfish service to such a demanding commitment that is also all volunteer. So most of you, I think I've met somewhere along the line over the last 26 years, and it has been the honor of a lifetime to be in this capacity and to see how things have evolved in terms of the relationship between the community, our visitors, and our Bureau of Police. You recall back in the mid-90s, we had a very tumultuous time in the city. And there were some high-profile incidents that resulted in serious bodily injury to individuals, predominantly African-American individuals, and deaths of individuals that were very questionable. And in 1995 and 1996, we had a very significant moment where we had the death of one Mr. Jerry Jackson. And if anyone's related to him in this room, my condolences. I think he comes up a lot in these kinds of conversations. He was killed in the Armstrong Tunnel by Housing Authority Police, not City of Pittsburgh Police. But the light went on to the City Bureau of Police. In October of that same year, Johnny Gamish died at the hands of suburban police officers just outside the city. And since police were on scene, they didn't kill Johnny Gamish. At the same time, we had the implementation of an omnibus crime act bill that was sponsored in 1994 by now President Biden, at the time he was senator from Delaware. And that crime bill gave for the first time ever the authority to the Department of Justice to investigate patterns and practices of public agencies, particularly police, where there appears to be a violation or a suspicion that people's civil rights have been violated as a matter of policy and lack of accountability. So, 1996, who rolled into town for the Department of Justice? And they opened an investigation that was intrusive, comprehensive, and resulted in the signing of a consent decree between the City of Pittsburgh, Department of Justice, which was the first consent decree between the United States Department of Justice and a municipal police department. And that particular consent decree, what that means is that any litigation that was pending is over and finished. This agreement becomes the way we reconcile the wrongs that were suspected, no admission of guilt, but that were suspected. And there were about 73 items in that consent decree. And the Bureau had a period of 5 years to come into full compliance, and they did administratively. Within 2 years, they were in compliance to the demands of the consent decree. But going forward from there was still residual mistrust, certainly. As all of that was going on, and it was up and down roller coaster kind of thing going on, we had a grassroots movement. Well, I should say, actually, it started with City Council. And they were not terribly inspired to create a civilian oversight entity. They tried with a flurry of bills, a flurry of ordinances that they thought would prevent the Department of Justice from coming in, and it didn't work. But they couldn't get the fifth vote to create a civilian review board. But people weren't standing for that, and a grassroots campaign emerged. And as a result, after many demonstrations, after a whole lot of attention being paid to electeds, We good? The issue of creating a civilian oversight entity was put on the primary ballot May 20th, 1997, and passed overwhelmingly. Close to 53% of the electorate voted to create what is now the Independent Citizen Police Review Board. My amendment to our Home Rule Charter. Our Home Rule Charter serves as our local constitution. And so whatever is embedded in that charter is an expression of the values of the people of the city of Pittsburgh. And then it goes to the city council, the electeds. They have to do something to enable a provision of the charter to be executed. And so in August of '97, then Mayor Tom Murphy begrudgingly signed the ordinance enabling the Citizen Police Review Board to actually begin. And so the first board was impaneled, and they held their first meeting in December of '97, and the rest is pretty much history. They took their first complaint in July of 1998, and celebrity never misses us somehow. That complaint, their first complaint, was from the daughter of country western singer Tammy Wynette. And so not only was there some pressure because it was the first time they ever held a public hearing, there was also first celebrity. But the rest, as I said, is history. We have gone through various formations of our board. The term for our board members is 4 years. If you recall, let's go back to 2010, 2009, where there was an event here in town known as the G20. After the G20, the mayor at the time, Ricco, did not want to cooperate with the board's independent investigation of some 89 complaints that we received subsequent to the G20 event. And so that mayor, as we were in litigation, trying to establish our rights and what the board was entitled to, and so on and so forth, he just wiped out 5 of our 7 board members, removed them from the board. Poof, just like that. We call it political whimsy, as that's what it was. We challenged that mayor and said, we don't think you have the authority to do what you think you just did. And so from June of 2010 through September of 2010, we worked with City Council to review the process of appointing members to the board. Now that process has come under some criticism from people in the past. And I'll tell you now that what we did was an extreme revision to that process. But we also had to define what is a vacancy versus a term expiration, because you will find that appointments to particular boards and commissions in this city, people will be appointed, they will be in a seat, their term will expire, but there's no successor appointed until it's convenient for the elected to remove them and put somebody else in that seat. Our board was tired of that happening to them, and so now the process, if your term expires, we notify that the chair of the board notifies the appointing authority, which will be either City Council or the mayor. There are 4 seats designated to be filled by nominees from City Council's recommendations to the mayor, and 3 seats that are directly the choice of the mayor. Council provides the consent to those appointments, and people can see it on the board. If they become disqualified, then that is a vacancy, and that process has to be filled within 30 days by the appointing authority. So, council is expected to create 3 subcommittees, each subcommittee providing a nominee, and then they adopt a resolution that is then forwarded to our mayor. The mayor, when there is a position open, designated as a mayoral seat, the mayor has the privilege of sending a name over to be filled, to fill that seat, and council will approve it or not. But there are now timelines to that, and if a vacancy or a term expiration is not filled, particularly term expirations, if they're not filled right away or within the time limits, then the incumbent is automatically re-upped for another 4-year term as though newly appointed, so that the continuity and consistency of the board is protected and our sitting members are protected from political whimsy. The board...
Thank you for watching this video of Pittsburgh events. To watch this video again or any other video from Pittsburgh events, you can go to the YouTube channel. It's 18 Ricco. It's youtube.com/18RICCO. Again, thank you for watching, and you can check out this video and any other video from Pittsburgh events and many other videos that didn't make it on TV.
The board thus far this year has received and evaluated 160 complaints. There is a requirement that individuals who come to us must come initially within the first 6 months of the incident they wish to complain about. After that, they have 6 months to file a sworn statement of complaint. The board, we have 4 investigators. We have 4 investigators who are trained professional civilian oversight practitioners. It requires that they initially get their credential 45 credit hours and then 30 credit hours annually for in-service to obtain their credentials. They're not people who just come in and just want to, go and do whatever they think would be fun to do when your oversight is police officers. They are trained professionals. They conduct an investigation. They have a tool, a subpoena, they can use if needed to obtain witnesses, statements, evidence, whatever. If the board determines, as they go through a process of determining first if they should go to a full investigation, which means at that point they go out and they talk to witnesses, they obtain officer statements, they develop so that the facts emerge. If they can't do that within the first full investigation period of 30 days, then it can be extended, but only the board makes that decision. And if the case is to be closed and disposed of as unfounded or otherwise resolved, the board will make those final disposition decisions. Staff does not, I do not. So the entire process ultimately is in the hands of our board members, who are representative of various neighborhoods, and ethnicities of our city. In 2020, there was further amendment to the local charter, and that extended to the board an obligation to conduct performance audits in conjunction with the city controller on the Bureau of Police. And we did the first performance audit last year. It was released in May of 2022. We're thinking we'll probably do that almost every 2 years. But that was entrusted to the board in 2020. We are also obligated to make referrals to the city's Commission on Human Relations when it appears that there may be a civil rights violation involved in a particular incident of which someone is complaining of. Or if there is a high-profile incident that occurs and no one has come forward, the board has directed me to open an inquiry into those incidents in which there may be a serious bodily injury or a death as a result of a citizen police encounter. So we will do that. I will swear a statement, and that will authorize the investigators to go out and develop the facts. They also have the purview of police policies and procedures to review those policies if they're edited or newly created before they are implemented. So we have the opportunity to give feedback to the Bureau with regard to proposed policies and procedures. The 2020 referendum also imposed a duty on City of Pittsburgh officials to cooperate fully with the board and participate in any investigation that the board has undertaken. I'm not sure, for time purposes, perhaps we should take some questions now, because I could do this all night. We have a very worthy person coming up behind me, so we want to hear from him, because he has the onus and the burden of responsibility more so than anybody. How about questions? Do we have any?
have one. Randy, would you come forward? Randy is our president. It says, we won't go over this, sometimes hard to read, but how do you get on the citizen police people? That's a great question.
It's a great question, and it's something that everybody should be aware of. Certainly, if you have an interest in serving on any city board or commission, there is a website, a portal through the city of Pittsburgh's website, where you can put your notice in there and you can identify yourself and express your interest. When it comes to the board, I would encourage you to notify your city council representative and the mayor's office. Let them all know you're interested in serving on this board. The only qualification is that there be nothing more than a misdemeanor on the criminal record. That's it. We have on our board also, and this was part of the 2020 referendum, the ordinance, the amended ordinance in 2010. 2 law enforcement professionals. It is law enforcement professionals defined in the ordinance. Now remember, the charter expresses our values. The ordinance enables it and puts life into it. So the definition of a law enforcement professional is found in the city code, in the ordinance, that enables the board to do business. The law enforcement professional was always an area where people were a little bit sketchy about, maybe the police or retirees or somebody's going to take over this board. Didn't happen. But we made sure that it wouldn't happen by identifying 2 seats and only 2 seats that must be filled by a law enforcement professional. One is designated to be appointed by city council, and the other is the decision and the choice of the mayor. So council has 1 law enforcement seat, and the mayor has 1 law enforcement seat. So.
We have another question, I'm sorry. If you have a question, please write it down on the card and pass it to one of the individuals walking. But this question is about being stopped by the police. What are the rights of someone walking stopped by the police? Can you hear me okay? What are the rights of someone walking stopped by the police? Can that person be searched? And when driving a car, can they be searched if stopped by the police?
Well, it could be. It could be. It depends on the circumstances. It truly does. If you're walking down the street, there has to be a cause for an officer to even suggest searching you. And I think that our chief can answer that probably a little bit more specifically. If you're driving a vehicle, however, there is case law in Pennsylvania that prohibits them from pulling a vehicle over and searching the vehicle without a cause. It used to be that a car could get pulled at a traffic stop. They'd get pulled over, and then they'd go through the car, they'd find something, arrest the individual in possession of the vehicle, or they wouldn't find anything and they'd send them on their way. But that individual was still subjected to that kind of, that power, that force from the police officer. In December 2020, I think it was, the state Supreme Court ruled that they can't just search a vehicle, just for the heck of it. And what we have seen is in some departments, a vehicle will be stopped in an ordinary traffic stop, and the police will confiscate the vehicle so that they can get a search warrant to search that vehicle. And then the outcome of that is, well, you're either going to coerce the individual to let you search the vehicle, or you're stuck with no ride to work or wherever it is you have to go to. So we're seeing where case law is catching up to some of these things, but it takes time, just as it takes time to change, to push and pull and tug at a culture to change it. But I think that the chief can answer that more specifically.
Thank you, Becky. Yes, we will ask the chief to answer that question as well. I do want to just add that I'm here to answer questions, but I could answer that question, but it's a very long answer because there's different scenarios. And there's also a simple answer, but I do want to do a shameless plug and let you know that the Atlanta Police Accountability will be hosting Know Your Rights workshops to let you know what to do, what you have a right to do when you're stopped, and what you have a right and not, what you do have a right to do, what you don't have a right to do when you're stopped by by the police, and what the police have a right to do, and what they don't have a right to do when they're stopped by the police, because both parties need to know what we're doing in those situations. And, Robertson has another question.
To supplement that, the UN police brochure that was sent out several years ago remains current in terms of being stopped as a pedestrian, but it does have to be tweaked with being stopped in a vehicle, related to what I just explained.
Matt, interesting question. How many complaints have you overseen? How many resulted in disciplinary actions? And why? I don't know if you can answer that relatively briefly.
That's a challenging, long discussion that really involves a whole lot more than just me kind of reporting back to you. A long time ago, when the board started processing and holding public hearings and making recommendations to the mayor and the chief, they were making suggestions like the officer should either be suspended for 6 months. That fell completely outside of the disciplinary guidelines of the city and the labor agreement. They wouldn't do it anyway because of the entanglement of the union contract, which outlines investigations, internal investigations, and disciplinary procedures for police. And so it was just not realistic. They turned then to be more constructive in their recommendations. And you will find that every finding and recommendation since in the last 10 years or so have focused on remedial work and focused on training and making it and discerning whether the conduct of the individual officer was misconduct or if there is a deficiency in the policy and or the procedure. And if it was found that it was a systemic issue, then the board would respond to that. And we would work with the police responsible for creating the policies and procedures to fix that. To at least eliminate it and say, this is causing a problem. The officer did what the officer was trained to do and what the policy said to do. It's the policy that was wrong and deficient. Fix that, and that will take care of this. Now, a lot of people don't like that, but in reality, that's how the world works. And that's what we have done. We cannot discipline officers. Lawfully, we do not have that authority. Only the officer's employer has that authority. And that is, of course, the executive branch of our government. There's also a separation of powers, which means that city council can't discipline an officer either. The reality is there are influencers on the community-police relationship that we should all be aware of. We remain subservient to the Pennsylvania state legislature. We are allowed to do only what they say we can do. When we chose a home rule government model, that gave us certain leeway and ability to establish how we will manage personnel and how we're going to organize our local government. Still, it all had to comport with state statutes. State statute controls the labor, the standards, and the terms of working conditions, not just of police, but of public employees. We can't do that which is reserved to the Commonwealth.
Thank you, Beth, for the answer. Real quick, just to get a direct response to this question, is there a place where anyone can find data on the number of cases the citizen review board receives and the number that they oversee and what the findings are?
Absolutely. cprbpgh.org.
Thank you.
That is the website, cprbpgh.org.
The next question is, will you be meeting with the current administration on a frequent basis?
We will be meeting to the extent it's appropriate and if it is convenient for the chief of police.
And I think we have time for one more question.
This is your last question for the day. Again, we have 4 more sessions coming up. We hope that all of you will come out again, because it takes some time. Does each municipality in the county have a complaint process? If not, what happens?
No, they don't. Allegheny County recently did create and establish by ordinance a county police review board. Problem is, again, go back to your civics and understanding government. Municipalities are self-determined. They have independence. They are their own little fighter. Allegheny County controls Allegheny County Police. And
To watch this video again or any other video from Pittsburgh events, you can go to the YouTube channel as 18 Ricco. It's youtube.com/18RICCO. Again, thank you for watching, and you can check out this video and any other video from Pittsburgh events and many other videos that didn't make it on TV.
indirectly, Pittsburgh Regional Police. We have 133, or depending on how you look at it, we have more than 130 municipalities in the county. The county controls one, maybe two. Because remember, they don't control the sheriffs either. That is an independently elected office. It is an elected individual, just like our mayor is elected. Our mayor is the person who represents our city, and we have entrusted the mayor. The courts have to entrust their work to the sheriff, who is independently elected. Each municipality has some form of government, a mayor, a manager, or a council or commission government. It's up to them to establish their accountability factors within their own community. Some have tried different ways. When somebody comes to us and they're out of our jurisdiction, we do hook them up with whatever community government official is available in the community in which there is an inhabitant, so that that law enforcement agency does have some connection to the management of the particular municipality. So that's the long answer. No, they don't. They should. There are about 10 million people in this country that live under some form of professional oversight. And it's all unique to local needs. But locally, that's the status of oversight. City of Duquesne tried to put one together, and that kind of fell apart again. For political reasons, these efforts are often stymied.
Let's give a hand to our citizens for thank you, Greg. That's taking care. We want to acknowledge the mayor of the house. He wants to be here, he said, to support his chief. He didn't want to say anything, but he is here. Let's give a hand to the first African-American mayor of the city of Pittsburgh and being here this morning. When I talked to the chief several weeks ago, I mentioned that he had been hosting these in the past, and I asked him if he continued the tradition, and he readily said yes. I said, we've done in the past 3. But when Roy Blankenship and I talked, then my team from Urban League and APA and ACP, we decided we need to expand. So we expanded and added 2 more communities. So we're going to be in the Northside on the 5th, September 21st, at BEULAH Baptist Church, up in the Mount Super Hilltop area, community empowerment. I got a call from Rashad today, Chief, on what happened yesterday, and obviously you'll be addressing that elephant in the room. And then on October 19th, we're going to Trinity Zion Church in the West End. Let's give a hand to our relatively new Chief, Chief Larry Ferraro.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me now? There we go. Thank you, Chris. I want to start by thanking you, the community, for giving me the opportunity to meet with you, speak with you today, partner with you today. Right, today's the first day of our new relationship together, and in that, it starts here. I want to thank our community partners, BPEP, APA, Urban League, NAACP, and then most importantly, our community, right? For this forum and for this opportunity. I know someone asked me to stay closer to this microphone because the news can't hear us. So I was kind of standing in the middle, I guess. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Larry Scarrato. I am the 55th Chief of the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police, but I'm not new to Pittsburgh. I started in 1995, retired in 2018 as the Assistant Chief of Professional Standards, and then 5 years later, this wonderful opportunity presents itself. When Mayor Gainey entrusted me with the leadership of the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police, it was an opportunity of a lifetime to represent a bureau that I grew up in. I started when I was 19 years old. In a city that I love. I lived in the Hill for a little bit of time on Crawford Square. My home was in Washington, and then with a community that I adore. So it gave me an opportunity that most don't get, and that is to have a full circle career and now be the leader of one of the proudest police organizations in America, representing one of the finest cities in America. So, give yourself a hand. So, you know, when I took on this leadership role, it was clear there were places where the Bureau could improve, places where we had not connected in ways that I knew were meaningful for building relationships and trust. And it starts here. So I defined 4 clear objectives for the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police under my leadership. One was that we would focus on violent crime, specifically gun violence in our city. I am committed, our organization is committed to that being our charge every day. I want and expect no community to accept gunfire as a norm in our environment, in our neighborhoods, and based on the zip code in which you live, that gun violence is
To watch this video again or any other video from Pittsburgh events, you can go to the YouTube channel as 18 Ricco. It's youtube.com/18RICCO. Again, thank you for watching, and you can check out this video and any other video from Pittsburgh events and many other videos that didn't make it on TV.
Violence is an accepted outcome, and that it would be the direction and the focus of this organization, all 900 men and women on a daily basis, to impact that in a meaningful way and to reduce gun violence in our city. The second was that we had built, or we would be intentional in building community police partnerships. There's this, I guess they would refer to him as like the godfather of policing, Sir Robert Peel, 1857. He speaks about 9 commandments for policing. There's probably one that's most specific to us, and that's commandment, what I call commandment number 7, and that is the police are the community, and the community are the police. And for 200 years, we have been messing it up. Right? And that's my goal, that is my charge to the men and women of this organization, that we don't mess it up anymore. Right? That if the community are the police and the police are the community, that we have an obligation to build relationships with one another. And we build those relationships in rooms like this, in our neighborhoods. And when we're doing that outside of times of crisis, right? If we're waiting for the crisis to occur to start building relationships, then it's already too late. It's already too late. Right? So we need to be proactive. We need to be engaged in a way that we just hadn't been in the past. And our profession, quite honestly, hasn't done very good in the past. So when I speak to, it is the obligation and the responsibility of the 900 men and women that represent the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police to be community partners. That isn't hyperbole, that's not talk, that's not fodder, that is fact. And that is an expectation of everyone that works for this organization, from my office to our newest hire. And so we'll be much more intentional. I tell the mayor, 2024 for the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police will be much different than 2023, I assure you. In a very positive way, in a very engaged way, that our officers will be available, our officers will be accessible. And in that, you'll know the police officers that have responsibility for your neighborhood. Right? And how can you tell me right now, show of hands, that know that police officer is patrolling in the hill? I got faith. I got faith too. Yeah, we're in a place of God, you know, I have faith here. faces and names of those that are responsible for keeping our community safe. That we're not building, and I don't teach, and we don't hire warriors, because there should never be a time that our police are at war with our community. That we hire guardians, right? That we hire guardians that are working in conjunction with our community to keep it safe as collective entities, it's collective responsibility. And that's the challenge and our number 2 priority. The number 3 priority is the quality of life for all of our city residents, visitors, business members, stakeholders, that we create a quality of life that Pittsburgh should be enjoyed for everyone. And the uniqueness of when Mr. Stevens and I had a conversation about how this turned from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 is that every community, 3 to 4 to 5, every community has a unique desire, unique needs, unique set of circumstances that a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't often accomplish, right? And that is important for me to hear from our communities that we're working with. I'm not talking at, I'm talking with our community to determine what matters to you. Because oftentimes policing says, you know, we will tell you what we think is the problem and the solution. And in that we solve neither. We come up with a lot of problems, but we don't have a lot of solutions. But if we have a collective ownership of what that looks like, problem solving and partnering, then we can resolve those issues together. But I understand that the only way that I do that, the only way that our officers do that, is to be available, accessible, and listen. And listen. And when we listen, and then we have a collaboration, a commitment to problem solving together, we have an opportunity to change the neighborhoods in which we live in a very positive way. Right? And so that's a commitment. And the 4th is our officers' wellness. I don't get our officers broke, and my commitment is that when they leave here, they're not broken. But along the way, they see and are involved in some very traumatizing events that others just aren't and don't have experience with. And we accept that as a responsibility and role of the position in which we sit, but that I have a commitment to not just their physical safety, but their emotional well-being, right? And if I can't care for their emotional well-being, then I am certain that they can't care for yours.
Yes.
Right? So when we talk about mental health, that we're intentional about providing care for our officers' mental health. We equip them better than most departments in America. We train them better than most departments in America. And we can never forget about their mental well-being, because that has a direct impact on how they treat and engage with our community. So those are the 4 pillars of how this Pittsburgh Bureau of Police shall be led under my direction. And in that, my commitment is that we are community engaged, we are accessible, we are available, and we are guardians for every citizen in our community. All the time, every time. I talk about servant leadership, and in that, it's clear. I work for my officers. And the better I am at working for them, the better they will be at working for you. We hold them accountable. We are transparent. We believe in equitable and constitutional policing, treating every member of our community with dignity and respect, no matter how we encounter each other. And if our officers have that level of commitment, and listen, they agree to it because they agree to our charge, our values, our morals when they cash that check every other Friday. So they agree to it. When they put their hand up in the air and they swear their oath, they agree to it. So my expectation is that they will uphold their bargain, uphold their agreement every time, all the time, without exception. And they will treat our community without exception, with dignity and respect, every time, all the time.
Yes.
And we will hold our organization accountable to those factors, or to those beliefs, our values, and the moral code in which the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police serves our community. So I'm going to stop it there, because I think that was about the 10-minute mark.
Got it.
And again, it's about listening to you. So
accountability, share with you a few statements that came in with regard to yesterday, and then we have a few questions about yesterday, and then we'll move on to other questions.
So as far as the parameters about yesterday's event, it is still an ongoing investigation. So there are parts of yesterday's incident I can't speak to publicly. I will speak to tactics, I will speak to policy, but if it is specific and has the potential to compromise our investigation or the state police investigation in any way, I'll defer that to another time. But if it's relative to policy, tactics, procedure, I'll be more than happy, more than willing to answer the questions that I can. So it's not to be elusive, it's to respect the process of an ongoing investigation for something that's so recent.
And just so that you all know, because the process is that you have to make your questions on these cards, every question will be read. How every question is answered is up to the chief, but we will read your questions. There are just a few statements, and I know it's probably because you don't really get the microphone right now, that people have, so I just wanted to make sure that your voice was heard, and just to read these statements, and then Barbara will read the questions. One statement is why is killing people work best for solutions of folks not listening to orders. The other says, only in America, a man can kill 9 or 11 folks while they worship at service and come out without a scratch, but one doesn't respond to an eviction notice, so we kill them. It's simple as creative thinking. And this, I think, is just general. It says, my hat's off to the officers who get it right. But we have all sometimes had good and bad experiences with police officers.
First question, and you can comment on any of that if you wish. First question was, did he shoot at anything or anyone, or did he shoot in the air?
This is relative to yesterday's shooting.
Yes.
He shot at multiple people during the rescue. So to answer that question, yes, he shot at people. It was not just shooting in the air.
That immediately after he was approached.
That was immediately at the time he was approached when the officers from the sheriff's department were arriving at the scene.
One question is, with regard to yesterday's death, give the citizens an amount that it costs for taxpayers. Obviously, you'd have to research that, but do you have any idea? Because it was a massive amount of police.
I don't know if I researched the financial amount more than the psychological toll that something of that magnitude, that tragedy, has on our community. So I don't know if there's a real dollar amount you have a place on it, because I'm not really talking about ammunition, things of that nature. I think about the emotional toll that something like that tragedy will have on our community. I think that's what we have to account for.
If I may. As a follow-up, you have staff that are taking questions.
Pardon me?
You have staff here who can follow up.
Yes, I my piano is here.
So, that's a very powerful response. But I think also, I know you can't do this in a minute. I think we all would like to know the cost of personnel in this city. Because what was it, 5 hours, 4.5 hours?
6 hours. 6 hours.
I would say, like you said, 4 years. So obviously, that manpower, womanpower, it would be interesting. You know, this question is, what negotiations, if any, took place yesterday?
So while the tactical operation is taking place, there is a shadow operation that is relative to negotiations happening at the same time in the background. So for every hour of tactical operation, which was 6, there was also about 5.5 of those hours relative to negotiation in the background. So our operation isn't just tactical, our operation is also relative to negotiation and offering a surrender, a peace peaceful surrender. So that is happening in the background, albeit that's not what you see. It is the reality of what is occurring. And those negotiators' sole responsibility is to end using words, associations, family, whatever verbal de-escalation opportunities that they have available to them, so that this ends peacefully. And in that was occurring simultaneous to the tactical operation which the community saw.
Was he able to hear from any relatives?
We presented audio recording through our PA system from his family members that were pleading with him to surrender.
You know, you have to stop by yourself, don't just have a one-on-one and forget you're here.
Yes, ma'am.
So, there are a group of questions regarding hiring and diversity. I'm going to read all of the questions so you can just answer them, in response. One says, Chief, what steps are being actively in place to recruit more minorities to the next academy class? The next says, how are you facing recruiting more people and Black people to join the police force since ends are understaffed? I told y'all I'm reading your questions. The other one says, what is the communication plan to increase/hire Black officers? Are you applying focused resources to increase Black applicants? The other one says, what will be your plans to increase diversity on the police force, especially when it comes to Black officers? And the last one says, what is the plan for recruiting new officers? And this last one says, you mentioned servant leadership as your style of leadership. How does servant leadership change how and who you recruit and train to police us?
That's a great question.
To watch this video again or any other video from Pittsburgh events, you can go to the YouTube channel as 18 Ricco. It's youtube.com/18RICCO. Again, thank you for watching, and you can check out this video and any other video from Pittsburgh events and many other videos that didn't make it on TV.
I think collectively I can answer the recruiting conversation, the recruiting question. I think all 5 of those questions are relative to strategy. First and foremost, when I speak to say I don't want warriors as police officers, we don't train warriors as police officers, we talk about guardians. And so we seek to have those guardian mindsets employed with the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police. So those that volunteer, those that, I'm not impressed by the candidate that was #1 in the Ricco Club. I am impressed with the candidate that was involved in the church. Look, I was a candy striper, and I don't know if you even know what that is, but I was a volunteer. I was a candy striper when I was young, so I was volunteering in the hospitals. And that candidate is much more desirable to me than that of the one that can shoot the bullseye from 100 yards away. And that shows and exhibits guardian mentality, the guardianship that we would expect from our officers. I don't hide from the fact that we haven't had a recruiting strategy for the last 5 years that was led by the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police. Our Human Resources Office has been responsible for that for quite some time, and they do a great job in what they were tasked with. However, if we're talking about engaging communities of color especially, where we know we have been underrepresented in our profession, then people want to hear from us. They want to know that people like me from this community can ascend within an organization and not just be successful, but be the leader of this organization, right? And if we don't have a strategy that supports that type of engagement and recruitment, then we will continue to get the results we get on a regular basis. And so partnering with Westinghouse CT matters. Partnering with the Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA matters. Partnering with CCAC. Our training academy is on a college campus. in one of their buildings, and we don't have a relationship, direct connection to recruiting in that world. So first and foremost is creating a recruiting strategy that acknowledges that we are underrepresented in communities of color, and then working toward building those inroads with our faith-based organizations, with our civic leaders. I'm asking community to trust your kids with me, and in that you better trust me, right? And so we will be much more intentional in our efforts toward that goal, understanding that we should be, for us to develop the level of trust that we must be reflective of the community we serve. And in that this is a noble profession that seeks all of the members of our community, whether you're Black, whether you're Latino, whether you're LGBTQ, that you are welcomed here. And welcomed here isn't just, again, a statement, a poster card. It's intentional and it's meaningful. And when I say it, I mean it, because I represent a few of those communities. And it's important for me that our department is reflective of the community we serve, if we ever plan or intend on having success in this space of community police partnerships.
I have a question.
Yes. I'm not sure you're allowed to ask it that way.
No, we have to have it on the cards, because we're going to have total confusion. We're going to have them. So, this is a very intricate question. What is the policy on arresting an unarmed person or a person who is walking on the street, who is not aware of their situation, an innocent person being arrested? This one says, I was coming from my university on 5th Avenue when I was detained. There was a robbery in the area 20 years ago. Why did they detain me when it wasn't me? This was downtown Pittsburgh. Will they be better at detaining young, positive people? That's how it's written.
Okay, so I think that maybe this will go back to the procedure question about the types of citizen stops that we make. Right. So there are 3 categories in which you can be stopped. One is a mere encounter, and that is you and I, officer, and you are walking down in a neighborhood and we encounter one another, and that officer begins dialogue. And even if that officer believes that you may or may not be involved in criminal activity, they can engage in that dialogue. But the key factor is you also have a right to walk away from that dialogue. Unimpeded, not detained in any real way. And I don't know how we'll figure that out. I'm not sure how anyone's answer this question. However, there is a second part of pedestrian stops, and that is investigatory detention. And that is where you are not free to leave. The officer, based on a variety of factors, whether it be identification, whether it be a 911 call, whether it be a crime in progress and a matching description, believes that you have reasonable belief that you are involved in criminal activity. And that investigatory detention obviously is less than probable cause, but there's a fair degree of reasonableness that you are and or potentially be involved in crimes. You are not, at that point, permitted to leave. And then there's a probable cause detention, and in that is simply that the officer believes to a high degree of certainty that you have committed a crime and are involved and engaged in criminal activity. You are also not permitted to leave, and that is a seizure of your person. And so in those things, those 3 factors weigh into your freedom to leave, your freedom to walk away from any encounter, and more importantly then, your obligation to remain and then be compliant in that encounter.
Related question, when will the Black community see real community policing trained in mental health crisis and conflict resolution?
So what I will tell you is that isn't a expertise that should be left to police. We don't train long enough, in depth enough to be adequate in that response. So since I've been gone, the city of Pittsburgh, under this mayor, has created the Office of Community Health and Safety. And we are piloting a co-responder program where mental health professionals respond with our officers in those mental health crises. See, I believe that we talk about do no harm, but we, in the past, have sent our officers into situations that they're ill-prepared and untrained, but expected to manage. And then wonder why there are failures in those events, right? So this city is one of the few cities across the country that is committed to a different style of policing, so that when our police officers show up at one of these mental health crises, that they also bring a resource that is specifically trained in mental health. And that resource then can provide the appropriate level of care for those individuals in crises. And that we no longer require or rely on the police to resolve something that they're not trained to do, something they're incapable of doing, and oftentimes left frustrated because they don't have an answer that's suitable for that situation. You know, police, we want to do good, and we want to resolve everything. This is a space we can't, and we can't do it in the amount of time that we're afforded in that one instance. So let's bring the appropriate trained professionals to these situations and give it a better opportunity for a peaceful resolution and provide our citizens that are in crises with the appropriate resources to resolve that crisis in the moment and hopefully long term. So OCHS and the co-responder program, as it continues to develop, I said,
Repeat what the letter said.
The Office of Community Health and Safety. They have just employed 10 social workers that will be shortly responding with our police officers. Some are doing it now. We had a pilot program in the Northside. It's just moved to downtown and in town. And so we can hope to continue to expand that program throughout the city, so that we're providing that resource to all of our communities, not just downtown or the North Shore. But it's a work in progress. I believe in it. I support it. And I think, given the opportunity, it will be a very successful program that will impact the way in which we respond to mental health crisis in a much more meaningful way with a much more desirable outcome.
How many months or weeks has that been in existence?
So it is.
Approximately.
So it started just before I got here in May, so it's just transferred to late June to town. So the pilot will take some time, and again, the city has committed the resources for OCHS to be successful. We have committed our strategy to the co-responder program, and in that we have the two committed partners that it requires for success. So I don't see why it won't get the desired results.
Chief, there are two questions related to what you're talking about.
Yes.
We're going to send it back to Brandy. Can the community be a part of the strategy for outreach for new officers? And how can you plan to engage with the community to build a trusting relationship with law enforcement?
So it starts here. And I don't say it can be. To me, it's an expectation of community to be a partner in this journey moving forward. That I will make and assure our officers are available and accessible, and we will meet you where you sit in your neighborhoods, in your community, and not expect, as in the past, you to come to us, and when you don't, we say that the community doesn't want to partner with the police. Well, maybe the community just doesn't want to come to 1203 Western Avenue. Fair. So, that is a commitment on my part for our organization and the 900 men and women that represent us to make those intentional efforts in our communities to be partners in a very meaningful way that we just haven't seen in the past.
To watch this video again or any other video from Pittsburgh events, you can go to the YouTube channel as 18 Ricco. It's youtube.com/18RICCO. Again, thank you for watching, and you can check out this video and any other video from Pittsburgh events and many other videos that didn't make it on TV.
Thank you. And I do want to try to get as many questions asked as possible, so we can try to limit our answers to 3 minutes. That would be great. I know everybody wants to hear what you have to say, but everybody also wants to hear. So I had one tough question before we go to a few easy ones. with one police officer alone having 119 allegations and complaints of abuse and misconduct. Why is it that you believe all of your officers are community oriented when the data shows otherwise?
So I will tell you, it's my expectation that all 900 men and women of the Pittsburgh Borough Police will be community oriented. It's my expectation because that's what they have agreed to as part of their oath, as part of their contract with this organization and this city. And when they fail to meet expectations, like the officer that had 119 complaints, we separate from those individuals. And in that instance, we have separated from that officer and his behavior and his failure to meet organizational values and community expectations.
Thank you very much for that answer and clarification. The next question is, when will you be appointing the new commander for Zone 3?
So they have gone through a process, right? Zone, where are you at? I know who asked that. I promise you. We're going to get all the zones. Everybody's going to get their zone commander. I know. And so the commander process, and my team is being built as we speak. The commanders have interviews with the mayor and the public safety director over the next 2 weeks. We plan on promoting on October the 6th. So you will have a new commander in Zone 3 by October the 7th.
Now, is that universal?
All of the commanders will be in their new roles on October the 7th. Yes, that is universal. I have the great opportunity, I guess, to promote 8 new leaders of the 17-person leadership team. So I'll be very clear. I know the individuals that are selected for these roles are not just competent, but they're committed to my values, our organizational values, and our community values. So stay tuned.
This is from associate pastor at Baptist, Central Baptist, Reverend Grayson. It says, what role does the new administration plan on taking with the clergy in the city? What role with the clergy?
A very engaged role. I was at Ebenezer on Sunday. We're doing all of these, I believe, are in churches. And with the exception of one? Two.
3 churches.
Right. But it is important for us to have just as important as our community relationships with our faith-based organizations. We are going to ask for and solicit your support. Again, this is about relationship building. This is about talking and encouraging dialogue where we build trust. And it is critically important for our success that we have relationships with our faith-based community. And we are starting in that space. Now, I know Chief McClay, at the time he was here, was very engaged in that space. And I will continue on that effort to ensure that we don't lose that connectivity. Again, if I'm asking you all to give me your children and your children of God, then you better believe that my motives are pure. And the only way you do that is to engage in a very meaningful way. And that's my commitment to our clergy.
Good. Chief, we had a question. Where were you born? Where did you grow up in the Black community?
I was born in McGee Hospital. I grew up in Modesto. I lived in Park Manor, which is a multi-racial housing project. Modesto is very similar to Pittsburgh, as with its racial dynamics. My father is a Black man, my mother is Italian, they are both deceased, God rest their soul. I came from this community, let's be clear. And so don't let the last name get it twisted. My father's last name is Nelson. Right? My father's last name is Nelson from the north. So I understand our community. I've grown up in it. I like to believe I'm a successful product of it. And in that, I understand the relationship, good and bad, with policing. I want to erase the bad and increase the good.
All of us in this room have been concerned about violence in Pittsburgh and Western Pennsylvania. Interesting question, how does Pittsburgh's violence compare with other cities such as Philadelphia, New York, Chicago?
I'd never like to say that we are in a better place than any other city because one death is too many.
Yes.
One gunshot victim is too many. One rape is too many.
Yes.
Compared to our sister cities, Pittsburgh is safe for most people, most times. And I stand confident in saying that. Those that are impacted in violence most oftentimes are involved in behaviors that create those opportunities, those tragedies. And so Pittsburgh relative to Chicago, relative to Baltimore, relative to Columbus, relative to Cincinnati, Cleveland, I can name it, I can provide you statistics to support it, is a very safe city. And we need to champion that far more often than we do, and not allow those that have the pulpit to suggest otherwise. Yes. But with the clear understanding that no violence, in my opinion, is acceptable. We will not accept death, gun violence, based on the neighborhood or zip code in which you grow up. It's not acceptable to get used to gunfire in any of our neighborhoods.
Yes.
What, if any, discussions have taken place with the police union? That's always a sensitive subject. To hold officers accountable if they violate the moral code you've said the force is duty-bound to uphold. And also tell us about what officer wellness program we have.
So we are, for the first time in actual cooperation with our labor union, we have outlined 15 terminable offenses that officers behave within one of these 15 offenses, and their service with the Pittsburgh Borough Police, representing the city of Pittsburgh, is no longer needed and or required. So in that, it's the first time that we have been able to, under Mayor Gaines' direction and his key leadership team's efforts, been able to memorialize a police contract. And in that, it is one of few in any police department in America that I know that labor has agreed to. So we have clearly defined and outlined moral expectations of our officers. And if they fall, and I was very clear, I see very clearly to this, if you fall in one of these 15 offenses, you have violated the ethics and the morals of Pittsburgh Bureau of Police, and you have no place in our organization.
All right. I guess we'll be watching.
Quick question, when serving a child support warrant by plainclothes police, should they have a paper warrant, and do they have to present it?
So the Pittsburgh Borough of Police don't serve child support warrants, and we don't serve evictions. That is done by the Sheriff's Office, and so similar to yesterday's instance, the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police does not serve civil warrants in the city of Pittsburgh toward our residents. We focus purely on criminal warrants, and child support and evictions fall under the civil warrant, and therefore are handled by the Sheriff's Office.
Thank you for that. And since we talked about the Sheriff's Office, I'm going to ask this question because I stated I want to ask all questions, but I do believe it may be out of your jurisdiction. Can the Sheriff's Office be involved with reminding citizens of littering and other environmental laws? Is the Sheriff involved with enforcing environmental laws on companies and corporations? So I guess maybe you can take that to local police. Does Pittsburgh Police do this? And if not, I guess we can try to find an answer about the Sheriff's Office.
Yeah, we can find an answer about the Sheriff's Office. I can tell you that Pittsburgh Bureau of Police does not enforce environmental laws. Littering is an ordinance, so that's something completely different. But as far as relative to corporations and such, we don't have a role or responsibility in
police department than the city of Pittsburgh Police Department. We have a lot of police departments on our issues. Quick explanation between being detained and arrested when you are in handcuffs. How do you know if you are just simply being detained or arrested if you are in handcuffs? And then also, there's a question about the use of ketamine by EMS and Pittsburgh Police. Is that used? Is it not used?
I don't know. So twofold. Let's go back to that question. Pittsburgh Police do not issue ketamine. We don't issue any drugs. Pittsburgh EMS has ability and capacity to issue various drugs for a variety of issues, a variety of traumas. Ketamine is one of them. I don't know in which manner they prescribe it, how it's directed. I'm saying the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police doesn't sit in that space of drug administration.
And for those who think that's a very wild, off-the-wall question, there are police departments in our country that have the power to administer medication to people, and people have gotten from them. So that's probably why this person's asking this question. Detained versus arrested, if you're handcuffed, how as a citizen do you know the difference?
They feel very much the same, right? That's true. And the responsibility on the understanding should lie with the officer about being clear on what is occurring. Again, we talk about dignity and respect, and I don't care how we encounter you, that there is an expectation that when we are going to detain someone, we are going to impede their freedom, that we are overly communicative and lie. So we will and continue to reinforce that to our officers, that they have an obligation to inform people of why they're being stopped, what the encounter entails, and to discern the difference between detention and arrest.
Coming.
And please, can we possibly get more specific with our community questions? Because there's been so many questions.
These are coming from everybody in the room.
I haven't heard one that specifically speaks.
These came from the people in the room.
In the health district.
Right now, if you have a question specific to the health district, we'll ask it. No one's asking those questions. We can't make up the questions.
I submitted my questions. And
I don't have one up here about the health district, so maybe someone didn't bring it yet. I apologize. But if someone can hear a question, please.
because most of these questions, they were checking, why they're in the
Understood. I said the same thing the other night on something too.
I thought this was a community conversation. That's what I thought this was, and I know that you know.
Thank you very much, Mel, but people are asking these questions. We're not writing them. So she would like you all to ask more questions about the health district, please.
I'll not believe that.
When it's over, anyone can come up and look at this. This is not one person's handwriting. So these questions are coming literally from the people in the room.
And there are a series of questions that we received after we talked about the incident yesterday that we will circle back to at the end because there's about 6 of them, just to let you all know that. And the chief to let you know as well.
Okay.
We have a question. Coming back to the city of Pittsburgh, what are the biggest problems that you've discerned in the city of Pittsburgh Police, Pittsburgh Bureau of Police? Coming back to Pittsburgh.
The biggest problem is we don't have a level of connection with young people. We're really good with children. We've been very engaged in that space. I think we missed the opportunity to engage in a meaningful way with those 13 to 18, probably the time that they're most impressionable, probably the time that they're most influential. We don't do or have not in the past done a very good job in that space. And that's a commitment that we made moving forward, that we will be involved, we'll be engaged in a very meaningful way in those spaces.
We did find a Hill District question.
Very good.
How can police help monitor the dirt bicyclists?
To watch this video again or any other video from Pittsburgh events, you can go to the YouTube channel as 18 Ricco. It's youtube.com/18RICCO. Again, thank you for watching, and you can check out this video and any other video from Pittsburgh events and many other videos that didn't make it on TV.
That disturb the residents in the Upper Hill late at night.
The dirt bike,
Disturbed bicyclists.
and listen, whoever wrote that question, I understand the nuisance that they are. We are very careful in our engagement in that space because we don't pursue the dirt bikes by the obvious potential outcomes of harm, and putting this 200-pound missile in motion in our communities oftentimes doesn't have a very desirable outcome for any people. So what we're working on is just different strategies to identify them, corral them in their fueling stations. But it is a challenge. And listen, I tell you when I don't have the answer, that's not the one I know the answer to. What I know is we'll attempt to enforce. We will not pursue them. And I don't say that in the big universe to give permission for that behavior, but I tell you in a very honest way that the harm that's created from that enforcement far outweighs the penalties that the court system will impose for the very few that we catch.
What are the 5 largest projects? What are the 5 largest capital projects, and how do they support the city police mission and improve the communities that they serve?
I love to give this question to the deputy mayor because I think he is better suited to answer this question. And I won't defer very often, but this is one that I think is best suited to Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Chief. So, for obvious reasons, the Chief can't speak to the capital project planning process, but I can. As Deputy Mayor, I also serve as Mayor Gainey's Director of the Office of Management and Budget, which does oversee the capital planning process. Right? Yes, Jake Pollack, Deputy Mayor of the City of Pittsburgh, and Director of the Office of Management and Budget. So, as it relates to our largest capital investments, I think some of the ones that are, they are not, as it comes to the 2024 budget year, they're not yet determined. The capital projects that are first and foremost for us in this budget year are mostly around the repositioning of real estate, right? In some cases, that's demolition of properties. In others, that's the repaving of streets. But the ones that are probably the most consequence to the Hill District community are the planned work in conjunction with the Bedford Choice HUD grant in the repositioning of the Bedford property and the associated redevelopment of affordable housing projects, as well as work along Center Avenue in conjunction with the RAISE grant for redevelopment along Center Avenue and associated support for businesses. There's relatively little, frankly, intersection between the work of the Bureau of Police and the capital budget. However, there's a lot that we are doing to invest in communities throughout the city, both this one and others, to rebuild community business districts and to invest in affordable housing and successful local commercial development in these communities.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor. I appreciate it.
Great question. How do you believe the organizations present tonight, organizations, agencies, churches, individuals, can help connect with young people to get them more involved?
So when I say we're building relationships built It starts with me and you all and our community partners, UPEP, ADA, and OACD, Berkeley, our faith-based community, our social programs, the Boys and Girls Club, the Y, is that you believe that my motives are pure. And if you believe that my motives are pure, then it goes without reason that you will entrust your children, your loved ones in my care. And when we do that, we have an opportunity to change the narrative around community police partnerships, and more importantly, then impact in a very meaningful way those members of our community that have our shared life experiences, willingness to join our bureau.
We have another Hill District question. How do we get more police to patrol in the hotspot areas such as Johnson Drive? I think we're familiar. Johnson Drive.
So we will continue to identify those neighborhoods that tend to be most violent, have the most proclivity toward gun violence, and direct all of our resources, or a fair amount of our resources, toward that goal. An example of that is that between our narcotics unit and our federal partners at the FBI, we were able to indict 32 individuals in the Upper Hill that were participating in gun violence. And we will continue those efforts. We haven't had, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to say it because I think it deserves acknowledging. We haven't had, since that roundup, since that raid, any homicides. And very few non-fatal shootings and a noted decrease in gunfire. So we will stand committed to holding those people that are committed to committing violence in our community accountable. And that's will always be the strategy under my direction. And it doesn't go overlooked, and we commit the resources to address it.
A similar question. In the mid-'80s, the city of Pittsburgh had a joint task force that patrolled heavy crime areas. Does the city intend upon implementing that is from Minister.
Yeah, so we are developing our violent crime unit is evolving into a violent crime division, which will encompass our violent crime unit detectives, our narcotics detectives, our intelligence detectives, and there will be a street component of that is enforcement related with uniform officers that are using intelligence and data to focus on those select individuals within our community that are committed to gun violence. And in that, it is a responsible approach to holding those select few individuals accountable for their actions and the harm that they create in our community. So let me say it again, that it's intelligence-led and it's responsible in strategy. So we are no longer blindly policing a neighborhood that all members of that community will become subject to this type of policing. There are very few people within our community that are willing to use a firearm to cause harm. And for those few people, we have a strategy for you. And we are committed toward that strategy in a very responsible way that will be as transparent to our community so you're not left guessing on what that approach will look like. It will be very inclusive in the engagement so that we have community involved in the development, but it is a work in progress that we've just started, and in that I believe, like I said earlier, that we will have a clearly defined strategy that you support in 24, much different than 2023.
Okay. I simply believe that the lines between sensitive policing, dealing with police issues, but also dealing with them in a sensitive way.
In a responsible way.
And not violating.
In a responsible, constitutional way.
Interesting question here. We have two questions. In your lawsuit against Fort Lauderdale, you have asked for your job back. So is this a temporary question? Related to that is, what is the status of your lawsuit? And if you were to win, do you get your job back? So is the chief of the Pittsburgh Police short term?
I don't want my job back. I'm not going back to South Florida. I am good here. Attorneys, right?
Why don't you amend your complaint if you're going to amend your complaint?
What's that?
You can amend your complaint. If you're saying that you're going to not go back, then you need to amend that complaint. Because I don't believe
I have attorneys that represent my best interests, and I allow those that sit in that space, the professionals that they are, to determine what the best course of action for this lawsuit is. But I'm certain that I'm saying, so like it or not, you're stuck with me. And I work at the will of the mayor, so until that will would change, I plan on being chief of Pittsburgh.
we're glad you're here.
Carmen is 1 minute. So you don't want to put her face. Carmen, we love you, because I know you're going to say
I read the law, so I'm just saying, you didn't amend your complaint, so that's what I'm saying. We don't know if you want to go back or you want to stay here. You have to amend that complaint.
If you've been there, you will not want to go back.
Okay, I have 2 questions that I'm not sure you can answer either, but I want to create all of your questions. So these are 2 questions that are similar. If someone forges a judge's signature in the courts of common pleas, which department do you report that to? The sheriff or you? And it says, what do you, it says court clerk in the common court of pleas forges a judge's signature, judge is aware of it and does nothing about it, district attorney's office is aware of it, and they will file no charges. So these are the 2 different questions.
So they both,
Do you know what you're doing?
yeah, they both reside in the judiciary and not in local policing. So we don't have any jurisdiction over writs, warrants, etc. But there is a judicial process that anybody can follow. I'm not certain I'm the best person to outline what that process is. I just know it's not a responsibility of the people.
Right.
And there was a question I think you answered, how can we as a community put our feet to the plow in assisting that regard? Did you want to add on to anything with that?
I think everybody's clear on how I feel about that relationship.
Okay, and if somebody who's here and asks this question, if you can help me clarify it says, how can we get all kinds of data from the south side and display officers there, but we can't do that anywhere else in the city?
So we're talking about this deployment? Alright, so to be fair, the south side's deployment was inadequate for what that community needed in the moment. It has a very unique environment, Thursday through Sunday, 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. that is different than any other neighborhood we have in the city. Yes. When I was the district commander, we had those patrol resources assigned to the south side to address just the behaviors that we are experiencing, have experienced over the past few years. So it wasn't allocating resources unnecessarily. It was out of necessity. It was required, and to be quite honest, it should have been done before I got here, a year ago. So I addressed what was immediately present, and it impacted the community, we believe, in a very meaningful way. If any of our other communities would experience that same level of chaos, we would be certain to address it in a very meaningful way. But that's what I talk about when we talk about partnering with community in a very meaningful way that impacts their quality of life, that impacts their safety. And when we do that together, we can come up with solutions that will improve upon the quality of life of any one specific neighborhood. And that's what the power of community police partnerships actually achieves.
To watch this video again or any other video from Pittsburgh events, you can go to the YouTube channel as 18 Ricco. It's youtube.com/18RICCO. Again, thank you for watching, and you can check out this video and any other video from Pittsburgh events and many other videos that didn't make it on TV.
So the kids, the young people that participated in that event came from pretty much a majority of every zone, and they were teamed up with each of our zone officers. And it was like a summer Olympics, and it was, what's that? They did a second year, and I think I was probably right when I was leaving the first time. So we got 2 out of it. I commit that it's something worthwhile committing, creating a legacy event for, and there's just not a better way that we can connect with young people than in that way. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your question.
Thank you so much. And so here are some of the questions that were asked yesterday that weren't able to be asked are related. One says, is it possible to police without a gun? Why can't we police without lethal force? Can the police be activated without bullets? And then the last question says, why did SWAT run out of bullets? These are all related to the incident yesterday.
So, I would love to tell you that we can effectively do our profession without violence, without a firearm, without bullets, without tactical operations. The truth of that is we live in a world that doesn't allow that behavior. In order to keep our community safe, there are going to be times that we are summoned to call upon to deploy deadly force. And no one welcomes that, no one relishes in it. It is a traumatic event for our officers as it is for our community. And unfortunately, at times, it is a necessity based on the behavior and actions of others. And we have an obligation to keep our entire community safe. And in that, there will be the actions of a few that will or don't allow this thing on my side to be disposed of forever. Would I love for a society, our society, to get there? Certainly. But we all know those within our community that take advantage of that vulnerability, and in that, I'm just not sure we get that. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that we don't ever have another police-citizen shooting. I'm hopeful. And in that, we do everything to mitigate and prevent that from occurring. There are just instances that isn't the outcome. And that is a sad reality for all of us.
There was another question that asked, could you have put him to sleep with or hit him with a tranquilizer, something, in certain situations? Or putting gas.
So for community's understanding, we spent about 1 hour of that event without gunfire. And in those instances, we deployed gas as an option for surrender. And in that, he had not responded, it was not effective, and then it led to more gunfire.
And the last question about the incident says, because of the level of police involvement, who or what level of police made the ultimate decision, federal, city, or SWAT?
I am the incident commander for instances of that magnitude, so I own the responsibilities and decisions of our organization, both tactically, technically, politically, policy. That is my responsibility at the moment, and I own those decisions, and I take a great level of care to ensure that the decisions I make are the just decisions based on the information that I have provided and the behaviors of those that we're encountering.
And then there are two questions I just want to inform people about. I mean, we had a question about what you do when you're stopped by police. There was another question that I said, when you file a complaint with the police review board and they find nothing wrong, who do you complain to next? I just want to advise the community that you can also file complaints with the local ACP and also with our organization, the Alliance for Police Accountability. There's one last question here that has come up today to our organization a couple of times about yesterday, and I don't know if this is something that the city police is going to have to deal with more or ask about more, and being that I said more, the question is, how does the city of Pittsburgh plan to engage with non-citizens who don't align themselves with the city, since the city is a corporation and participation is voluntary? And that question is coming from the beliefs of the borders and having, being under sovereignty. And this question has come up often because Mr. Bill yesterday was more as well. And so this is a conversation that has been taking place. There's videos of people getting pulled over by police and invoking their sovereignty and officers not knowing what it is. And so I think it's something that we will be having to engage the community about. But that is the question. How does the city of Pittsburgh plan to engage with non-citizens who don't align themselves with the city?
I think it's just so we don't ever cast a group of people into a bucket. Most sovereign citizens don't engage in violence, and in that the resolutions are more often than not peaceful. We have, and we live in the Commonwealth, which is regulated by laws, and there's an expectation that we follow those laws. And for those that profess their sovereignty, then you have to understand that you're still regulated by our laws, and that we will work. I think it's really important that it is where we have better collaboration, that we work on messaging to that community to ensure that there's a level of understanding and awareness, not only on behalf of those that profess that lifestyle and belief, but on behalf of our officers that are oftentimes called upon to adjudicate the laws of this Commonwealth.
Related question before we go to the announcement and president of the government. Will there be, the investigation is under the state troopers? Or what is it?
Yeah, Pennsylvania State Police is the lead investigative body for yesterday's trooper.
My question is, will the city review in great detail everything that happened and what possibly could have happened differently to produce a different outcome?
So we have what we call the Critical Incident Review Board, and that is once the investigation, the criminal investigation is complete, the district attorney's office has made their decision on outcomes, is that we review internally if the actions of our officers were within policy, were within the moral and ethical values of our organization, and could we have done things differently to ensure that there wasn't a loss of life. And in that, we all stand committed to ensuring that the end outcome is peaceful resolution, and that yesterday's tragedy is never the objective and never will be the objective, and to ensure that we are, as an organization, being responsible stewards of the trust.
Once that report is done, will it be public?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting conversation we should have. I don't know, I am not opposed to any information that increases transparency for the Bureau to our community. And so in that, I don't want to answer that hazardly right now. I think it's something that I will definitely take under consideration, and maybe we figure out what that looks like. I just don't know if certain in the moment I can answer that in a way that's responsible to all parties and not BSU problem. Right.
Thanks for watching the video. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so I can bring you more videos on subjects like this and many other topics. Please leave any comments in the comment section, any questions or comments, I'll get back to them as soon as I possibly can. Thanks a lot for watching. Hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.